All right, so as y'all can see there, that was Rihanna giving a compliment to a random fan. And when I saw this on Instagram, I wanted to know who this fan was. And actually, this fan was actually a celebrity from France. I think she goes by the name of Paola Locatelli, and she is a French influencer and also an actress. And I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of clips and tell me what y'all think before I start doing my rating. So watch this. All right, so her overall rating is a 5.5. How rare is that? That is 1 in 2.68 people. The percentile of people, or the percentage of people, is a top 37 percentage. Now that kind of surprised me. I thought she would have been a little bit higher. Her side facial score was a 78%, which is amazing. Her front facial score is a 49%. Her total facial harmony is a 60%. Her facial dimorphism is a 3. Her body fat factors is a 5. Her miscellaneous features is an 8.5. We got the tier list to the right side. Tier 1 is ideal. Tier 2 is near ideal. Tier 3 is normal. Tier 4 is a slight flaw. Tier 5 is a flaw. Tier 6 is a huge flaw. And Tier 7 breaks harmony. These are the overall facial assessment breakdowns. Her best features and the worst features. Let's start off with the best ones. Is a lengthy nose, her eye color, smooth skin texture, almond-shaped eyes, and long mandible. Her worst features is a high body fat, low hyoid, long forehead, and short filter. These are the rarity scores of other celebrities so y'all can compare. Her facial dimorphism. Alright, so we're looking at the female side, and she only got really 3 check marks, honestly. And the first one is, I put them together as one, is the canthal tilt and the eye aspect ratio, the mouth to nose, and the eyebrow tilt. And this facial dimorphism is worth 20%. Body fat factors is worth 25% of the overall score. And she only gets half, which is at the side of profile for the jaw visibility and cheekbone leanness. And her side profile is more lean than her front profile. Her miscellaneous features, she literally scored perfect on it. And actually she did get 0.5 for this. Actually, 0.5 for the skin quality because of a small little scar on the top of her forehead. So she did get that one. I don't know why I didn't put a check mark on that skin quality, but yeah, that is a check for that one though. But majority of it is pretty much perfect. All right, so let's start off with the first one, which is the eye separation ratio. So her eye separation ratio goes from the pupils, or the distance between the pupils, to the distance between the cheekbones. And the distance between the cheekbones and the distance between the pupils is at 43.4%. And 43.4% means that she does have eyes that are closer set. And this is going to be a flaw. Her facial thirds is perfect. Each third is evenly divided, closer to 33%. And preferably you want your middle third to be the longest for a female, which hers is not. Her canthal tilt is 7 degrees. 7 degrees is perfect. Upturned eyes make your face look youthful, and her face does look very youthful. Her facial width to height ratio, FWHR, it measures the distance between her facial features relative to the distance between the width of her face, and hers is at 2.10. And 2.10 isn't too bad. It's just that her facial features is more compact. Her jaw frontal angle is 110 degrees. We're going to find out why her jaw frontal angle is 110 degrees later on, but 110 degrees means that she does have a very flat jaw, and it can look boxy or box-like. All right, so the next one is a cheekbone height steadiness, and hers is at 0.68. 0.68 means that it's only 68% of the length of the mid face. and that means that it is low set or low to medium set. And low to medium set is going to get you at a slight flaw, so this will be a slight flaw. Preferably you want higher cheekbones than this. Her total facial height to width ratio is a tier 3 at 1.4. This means that her head length is a little bit on the longer side. So it might not seem like that because she is more of a high body fat percentage, but you got to also remember that she does have a very long forehead, so that kind of contributes to it. Her bigonial width is 91%. 91% means that she does have a very wide jaw. Anything wider than this will get you outside of what is considered attractive. Her chin to philtrum ratio is a tier 3 at 2.75. 2.75 means that her philtrum is actually a little bit too short. So if she did have a longer philtrum, this would harmonize well with her chin. Now, and this can also help with her mid-face ratio as well. So not only will this help with the chin to philtrum ratio, but it will help with the mid-face ratio as well. So that's why I put it as one of her biggest flaws. Her neck width is 76%. 76% is perfectly fine, and so she does have a perfectly good neck width for her face. Her mouth to nose width ratio is a tier 1 at 1.56. 1.56 means that she does have a good relationship between her nose and her mouth. Preferably you want your mouth to be wide enough so it can line up with the inner iris of the eyes, which as you can see it does, and the nose actually lines up with the inner canthus of her eyes, as you can see right there. So these are perfectly shaped. These are perfect ratios for her nose to mouth ratio. So these do line up very well with her eyes as well. So that is perfect. Her mid-face ratio is a tier 2 at 1.12, and 1.12 means that her mid-face is a little bit more on the compact side. Now the good thing is, for a females will have more compact faces, so she can kind of get away with this. But for a man, you are kind of messed up if not messed up, but you are kind of more on the this will be more of a bigger flaw for you if you're a male. But for a female, they can kind of get away with having a more tighter and more compact mid-face. Her eyebrow settiness is at a tier 3 at 1.25. 1.25 means that she does have very high set eyebrows. And yes, women can get away with having more high set eyebrows, but anything too high is going to be more of a flaw. Her eye space to one with eyes apart is 1.12. 1.12 means that she does have a wider width between her eyes, and this means that there's more spacing in between the widths of her eyes. And anything more than this will be going towards a flaw, but this is okay. So this is within the normal range. So this is not anything too crazy. Her eye aspect ratio is a 2.75. 2.75 means that she got perfectly rounded eyes. And her lower lip to upper lip ratio is a tier 2 at 1.21. If her upper lip was just a tad bit smaller or a tad bit less lengthy, this would have been perfectly fine. But her upper lip is almost as full as her lower lip, and that is not ideal. Her deviation from her ipsilateral angle to her jaw frontal angle is 10 degrees. So there's a 10 degrees deviation from the top angle to the bottom angle. And preferably you want that deviation to be parallel with each other. And this is not parallel with each other, but this is at a tier 2. So it's not too bad of a difference. Her eyebrow tilt is 15 degrees. 15 degrees is perfectly tilted. You want that to be more tilted upwards. It makes your face look more aesthetic. Her bitemporal width, so how much forehead exposure does she have relative to the width of her face, and 89% is perfectly fine. Lower third proportions is 34%. 34% is also perfectly fine, and you want this to be close to 33%, but 34% is right there, and her lower third isn't too bad overall. Her ipsilateral angle, all right, so this angle is the top angle that I was talking about, the angle of the mid-face, and hers is at a tier 3 at 100. 100 is pretty wide, so yeah. All right, so for her side profile wasn't really that bad, so I'm just kind of get through this real quick. So her gonial angle is a tier 1, it's pretty sharp, and 128 degrees is perfectly fine. Her nasal frontal angle is good as well at 137. And these are the outside ranges of it. These are not like within the middle of it. So, but this is still within the perfect range. And she does have a brow ridge. So this indicates whether she has a brow ridge. And this does say that she does have a brow ridge. Her mandibular plane angle is 18 degrees. 18 degrees is perfectly fine. And what this indicates is whether how inclined is your mandible. So preferably you want your mandible to be somewhat steep, but not too steep. You kind of want it to be parallel with the ground, and hers is kind of parallel with the ground, so that is perfect. Her ramus to mandible ratio is 0.72, so her ramus is 72% of her mandible, and that is perfectly fine. But this also tells me that she does have a very long ramus. Her facial convexity from the glabella is 166 degrees. And 166 degrees means that her face, or her facial convexity from the side, is very rounded. So it goes from the chin to the subnasion to the glabella. And you want this to be a little bit over 168. So hers is only 2 degrees less. But this is not bad at all. Her submetaclavicle angle is at tier 3 at 114. Now, looking at this, I think it's because she has a low hyoid, as I put in the flaws or her worst features. And having a low hyoid can actually make your submetaclavicle angle more obtuse. So that is the bone underneath the neck, and you don't want that to protrude out too much. And that's exactly what's going on. Her nasal-facial angle is a tier 1. That means she does have a good relationship between her nose and her chin, so that is perfectly fine. Her nasal labial angle is a tier 2 at 95 degrees. So this is kind of close to what is considered ideal for a female. Now, this, I think it's not really because of her nose. It might be because of her upper lip. Her upper lip is very protrusive. So I feel like that kind of counter-reacts to it. But if her upper lip wasn't as protrusive, I feel like this would have been ideal. Her orbital vector, so she does have deep set eyes. Her orbital rims go past the actual eye itself. It might not seem like that in this picture, but trust me, it is. Her total facial convexity is a tier 1 at 146 degrees. 146 degrees means that she does have a good facial convexity, and it also takes into account her nasal protrusion as well. Her mental labial angle is a tier 2 at 108 degrees. Now, the reason why is because her chin is slightly too protrusive, and her lower lip is protrusive as well. So it's kind of creating a tight angle in between, and you don't want that angle to be too tight. Her facial convexity from the nasion, so this one, instead of going to the glabella, it goes to the nasion, and hers is still a little bit too rounded at 162 degrees. It's only 1 degree off. And so for facial convexity with just a tad bit more tighter or flatter, this would have been perfect. So yeah, if she did have a higher nasal bridge, in my opinion, I feel like this would have harmonized well with each other. Her nasal projection is a tier 1 at pretty much, this is 60%. So it goes from the nasal width divided by the nasal bridge, and 60% means that she does have a very projected nose. Her nasal width to height projection, and this indicates whether how lengthy her nose is, and she does have a very lengthy nose, which is perfectly fine. Her rictus E-line, so these are the lip measurements. Her rictus E-line goes from the nasal tip all the way to the chin, and you want the upper lip and the bottom lip to be below or beneath the line, and hers is actually passing the line, so this is not ideal. Her H-line goes from the tip of her upper lip down to the chin, and you want the bottom lip to barely touch the line, and hers is past the line, so that is a tier 3. Her S-line goes from the middle of the nose down to the chin, and preferably you want the top lip and the bottom lip to barely touch the line, but hers is actually passing the line, so that is not ideal. And her bursal line goes from the subnasal down to the chin, and you want the upper lip to you want the upper lip to pass the line, and you want the bottom lip to barely pass the line. And hers is kind of in between, so hers is actually at the same length, and you don't want them to be at the same length. That is not perfect, or that's not considered ideal. Her nasal mental angle is 130. 130 means that she has a perfect relationship between her nose and her chin, and it also takes into account her facial convexity as well. So that is perfect. Mouth relationship, you want your gonian bone to be below the mouth, and from this picture you can see that the gonian is below the mouth, and that exactly is where the two vectors meet for the ramus and for the mandible. And yeah, the gonian bone is below that mouth line, so that is perfect. Her recession relative to the Frankfurt plane angle, like I said before, she does have a long mandible, so I expect it to be past it, which it is, and it's also past her glabella too, so it's past the nasion and the glabella, so that is perfect. Her brow ridge inclination is a tier 1 at 17 degrees. 17 degrees means that her brow ridge is more on the inclined side, so that makes it even better. And you do want to have a brow ridge that is more inclined. It makes your face look more aesthetic from the side of profile. Her nasal tip is a tier 1 at 127 degrees. 127 degrees is perfectly fine. It's at the higher end, but is not too rounded of a nasal tip to where it is considered unideal. So this is perfectly fine. Now her nasal tip looks a little bit more sharper, but from this, it is really not. But yeah, so her lower lip to upper lip, her lower lip to her submental plane, sorry about that, is 112 degrees. 112 degrees is ever so slightly outside of that range. And like I said again, her lower lip is a little bit too protrusive. That's why this angle is not within the 90 to 110 degrees. So I can see why this will be outside of that range. But this is still perfectly normal and it's perfectly fine. Just if her upper lip was just a tad bit slight less protrusive, this would have been within that ideal range. Her inferior third of her face to a lower third of her facial proportions. So this is not the same as the lower third proportions. It's a little bit different. It's just another way of analyzing to see if your lower third proportions is properly proportionized. And hers is at 0.51 or 51%. So 51% of her upper portion of her lower third versus the lower portion of her lower third as well. And this is perfectly fine as well. So her lower third is all around is perfectly fine. And I feel like it's because her philtrum to chin ratio was kind of off, but I feel like the lips kind of counterbalance that out. So I feel like both of them kind of counterbalance it. I see it a little bit with some other celebrities as well. So some people have that a little bit of effect where things kind of counterbalance each other to where it kind of harmonizes all around. Even though it shouldn't, but sometimes that does happen. So yeah. Her S2 line, so this is a way to measure if you have a malocclusion, and hers is at 72%. 72% is perfectly fine. This means that she does have a perfect bite. And as you can see right here, these are the malocclusions. So an underbite is where the upper jaw is actually below the lower jaw, and the overbite is where the overbite is where the upper jaw is below the lower jaw, and the underbite is where the upper jaw is underneath the lower jaw. So you don't want any of these two malocclusions. You want a perfect malocclusion where the upper jaw and lower jaw meet with each other. And for her, she does not have any of these two malocclusions, which is normal and perfectly fine. And the last measurement is the Z angle, all right? So the Z angle identifies whether you have a perfect lip protrusion for your face. And for her, she is kind of close to it. She's still within the normal range, surprisingly, but hers is just a little bit too protrusive to where it is considered ideal, and the ideal is 75 to 78, so she is very close. So this is not too bad, but preferably want to be around 75 to 78. So yeah. And yeah, so this is pretty much it for her. This was surprising. I thought she would get a higher score or a higher rating than what she got. But still, I think she did pretty well. And if you want me to rate your face, make sure to email me. I'll have my email down in the description. I'll also have my IG down in the description. Make sure to DM me. And within 24 to 48 hours after I give you the instructions, you will get your facial rating. And from there, you'll know exactly where you are. All right, I'm out, guys. Peace.